have to do what every day with this car? Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today's video, I wanted to discuss what if electric cars came first. Now, I'm not really going to get into all of the history of this. Actually, electric cars kind of were first, but kind of weren't. If you go back in history and look, gas and electric cars 120 years ago, gas and electric cars were both being played with, and gas cars won out for the most part for the last, for a century. And but this video comes up because I've had a number of people make comments, and one guy made a comment on a recent video that I didn't buy an expensive car to limit my range by not charging all the way and preheating the car, and it's a bunch of nonsense. And there seems to be this mindset that EVs require a large amount of fiddling and handling with kit gloves and doing all this special stuff to use, and that is absolutely not the case at all. There are a couple of principles related to EV use and ownership, and they're very simple items. They just happen to be different than the steps required for a gas car. So I'll get into that in a second, but imagine this. So imagine for 100 years, people were plugging their cars in at night, get up in the morning, unplug it, and whatever. Maybe they have to in the morning set the charge. Like for me, I charge to 80% at night, and then I get up in the morning and turn the charge up to 90% about an hour before I leave with the app, and I turn my cabin heat on. It takes me 15 seconds. I've timed it. Go into the app, turn the heat on, and turn the charge up to 90%. 15 seconds. And what that does is it peaks the charge of the battery and warms the battery a little bit. It warms the cabin. This is what I do in the winter. In the summertime, I don't do anything because 80% state of charge is plenty in the summer for my day, and I'm not worried about it. It's cool in the morning, but not too cold. So I don't do anything in the summer. I just get up, go out and unplug it. So, but imagine that you were doing that for 100 years. It's that people have been experienced it with cars in this way. All they really do is add washer fluid to it, check tire pressure every once in a while, but daily you just plug it in at night, unplug it in the morning. In the winter, maybe you'll charge to a little bit less than 100% and then, boost the charge up a little bit before you leave and turn on the cabin heat, which again takes about 15 seconds. Well, imagine doing that, and that's all you've ever known. Then all of a sudden somebody invents this new thing, which is a gas car. And they go, oh, but you don't have to plug and unplug the car every day. And in the winter, your range is only affected a little bit, not quite as much as an electric car. Isn't that great? Oh my gosh, you know what we would hear people saying? Excuse me, you have to pay money to put gas in that thing every few days? Are you kidding me? How much does it cost? What, every few thousand miles you got to take it to a place for service to have the oil changed? I only had gear loop changed in my EV once in the life of owning it. That was at like 200,000 miles. Wow, you have to have oil changed all the time? Jeez, you're smelling fumes and you got this and that. Wow, how is that better? And people would definitely be very resistant to it, and there would be a lot of pushback. Well, and there's a lot more downsides to gas cars than electric. I would say the only real downside to electric, even with a Tesla, is that the charging infrastructure isn't quite where it's at, and it takes longer to charge than gas up a car. I would argue that that's the only benefit to a gas car. That, and potentially a little bit less money per unit of usability or whatever, mainly because Teslas are the primary decent EVs that are available right now, and they're a little on the expensive side. If you want to get an electric car that's the price of a gas car, you're going to be limited in range. So cost is a little bit of an issue. I just find it fascinating that people find it inconvenient to plug in a car every day, and during the winter, if you want to maximize your range, you maybe preheat the car or charge to a little less than 100% daily, and so you can't charge to 100% every. I mean, I find that kind of ironic that there's pushback that is way too inconvenient. You know what? There are far more conveniences related to owning an EV than there are inconveniences. inconveniences. Also, my methodology of charge to 80% and then turn the charge up right before I leave, you know, Apple has adopted that with their new iPhone. A friend of mine last night, or Monday night, had handed me his iPhone because we were talking about battery life. Another guy in the group there was like, yeah, I hate this, the battery. I love my cell phones, my smartphones, but the battery dies, you know, after 6 or 8 months or a year at the most, and my battery won't hold a charge. I said, it's because you're charging to 100% all the time. He goes, yeah. I said, don't do that. Stop at 80 or 90%, and your battery will last, I mean, not just a little longer, it'll last like 8 times or 10 times longer. He's like, seriously? I said, yeah. So I explained to him that the 80-20 rule. I said, best for longevity to keep the charge between 20% and 80%. I said, you can evade the top 20%, you can evade the bottom 20%. You just don't want to let it sit there for long periods of time frequently. If you're going to charge it to 100%, charge it to 100% and then use it right away. Don't let it sit there at 100% state of charge all the time. Don't discharge it to 3% and let it sit there for a long time. Only use the top and bottom 20% when you really need to. And it's always there, but for day-to-day use, keep it between 80 and 20, or maybe 10 and 90%, something like that. And your battery will last longer. So another friend of mine hands me his iPhone, and he said, look, the new iPhone, you can't manually set it, but it learns your behavior, and it even says, for maximum battery life, we've tailored your charging to your habits. He said, I get up every morning and take my car off the charger, and he said, since my phone knows it stops at, I don't know if it's 80 or 90%, but you can see the curve. It stops charging overnight at a certain level. Then it knows he's getting up at 6 a.m. and it boosts the charge so that right at 6 a.m. it's peaked the charge right when he takes it off the charger, and it can start discharging again. He said Apple knows that. So if you guys think I'm wrong, go look at the specs of an Apple phone. And also, people keep making the comment, Elon Musk says 90% is fine. Ugh. Okay, define 90% is fine. And I'll even say it's okay. I don't have a problem charging to 90%. But here's the thing. The closer you stay toward the middle of the state of charge, the longer your battery will last. 90% is fine, but that doesn't mean stopping at 80% isn't even better for the battery. Now, we can argue, is it only 1% better or whatever? I don't know necessarily, but I know that throughout the year, on average, me charging to 80% in my car is generally plenty. I normally use 60% charge in a day. So I charge to 80%, I show up at home with like between 20 and 26% is the norm. And then I plug it right in. So there's no reason for me to charge higher than 80%. In the winter, I'll get up and it's at 80%. I turn the cabin heat on about an hour before I leave. I turn on cabin heat and I turn the state of charge up to 90. And by the time I go outside, it's at like 86% or something. And I go on my work day. It's a simple process. So anyway, I go back to if electric cars were all that people knew and suddenly gas cars were introduced, I think people would, like right now, I love the sound of a gas engine. I do. We have this BMW M car. Oh, I love that car. But it's only driven on the weekends and that and whatever. But it's a nostalgic thing. I like mechanical, brutish stuff. Well, but that's ingrained in me because it's what I've known. If you've only known vehicles that were quiet, maybe had that electric whistle or electric whine, and they were inexpensive to operate, and they were full every morning, that's another thing. To gas up a gas car, you got to drive to a station, and you got to pay like $35-40 to fill the thing up. Wow, why would you? And you got to bring it in every couple thousand miles to have the oil changed, and it's less reliable. What are you thinking? And the darn thing's noisy? Well, that's the way people would look at gas cars today. The reason that it appears to be inconvenient to maybe monitor charge level, if you want to do that on your EV, you don't necessarily have to, but just because it seems that people think it's inconvenient to maybe look at charge level or preheat the car before they leave to give them a little bit more range, suddenly that's horrible and it's the end of the world. No, I mean, let's look at this realistically and realize that we are looking at battling against old habits versus new. So those are the things I wanted to share with you guys today. So thanks a lot for tuning in. Thank you to the Patreon supporters. I've got a couple new Patreon supporters. I really appreciate you guys. I've had people ask where I'm at with shipping screen mount orders. We're just finishing up the orders from October, moving into November, and that may sound like there's a huge backlog, but the majority of orders were September and October. So then the volume of orders tapered into November. So I'm way over halfway through the pending orders. So, and production has stepped up. So not just for the metal parts, but for the fabric covers. So if you have a screen mount kit on order, they will be shipping en masse here coming up soon. And I want to have everything shipped before Christmas, if at all possible. So right-hand drive screen mounts, I will be beginning to take pre-orders for those probably about Christmas time or so. And they will go into production in January to begin shipping probably in February. So that's where we're at on the right-hand drive screen mount kits. I think that is it. So if you guys have any questions, as always, leave them in the comments section below. And I've got some interesting information regarding purchasing another EV. So I'm doing another video on that. I'm not getting rid of the Model 3. Don't unsubscribe because he's getting rid of his Model. No, that's not the case. This will be my car that I'm using all the time, but looking at a different EV, number one, that my wife can use daily, and number two, that I can get some content from. I'm not running out of Model 3 content, I'm actually not, but I would like to mix it up a little bit, do some comparisons. And I've held off on pre-ordering a Mach-E. We may be getting a Model Y next year, but also we may be getting a short-range EV in the interim. And I've got a video coming up on that. I'll explain why. So anyway, thanks a lot, guys. Go ahead and give me a thumbs up. Consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. And yep, look forward to the Christmas season. Have some cool winter videos coming. So you guys have a great day now. Bye-bye. Yep, probably gonna get some pushback in the comments section on this video.